Since its beginnings, turn-based RPGs have been a major part of game culture. In this video, I will show you some best turn-based RPGs of all time. So without any further ado, let's start this video. The first game of this video is Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII is a complex and well-written narrative that follows protagonist Cloud after a terrorist attempt on a reactor goes awry and he is cast into the slums of Midgar. From a turn-based gameplay perspective, Final Fantasy VII set the standard for the genre. There are separate worlds for both the overworld and combat, with Square pioneering the party-based gameplay system that's still common in turn-based RPGs today. Next up we have Grandia II. Grandia II was published for the Dreamcast in 2000, and 19 years later, it's still getting adaptations and ports, with a high-definition remake released in 2019. Grandia II longevity alone makes it one of the most popular and successful turn-based RPG games of all time. The combat in Grandia II runs its turn-based system in real time, with mechanics that feel similar to those of the Final Fantasy series. However, developer Game Arts put a unique twist on things with gameplay. Next up we have Persona 5. Multiple outlets have described the game as one of the best RPG experiences of all time, and it has garnered several individual accolades, including the Best RPG of 2017 and numerous more nominations. The turn-based gameplay features battles that take place separate from the overworld. The combat isn't anything foreign for anyone who's played a Persona game before, with you recruiting a roster of personas to use in combat. Each persona has its own attribute that dictates its weaknesses and strengths, as well as what combat abilities it has access to. Next up we have Divinity Original Sin 2. Divinity Original Sin 2 is a 2017 game that, to this day, maintains a 95% Steam score with overwhelmingly positive user reviews. The sequel was both commercially and critically successful, winning several awards following its release. Divinity Original Sin 2 is set in the same universe as Divinity Original Sin, with the plot focusing on monsters invading the world due to a weakening between the veil that keeps it separate from the void. Next up we have Valkyria Chronicles. The Valkyria Chronicles series stands out in the current turn-based RPG environment because it is not only based on third-person shooter combat, but it also skillfully integrates real-time and turn-based gameplay. While practically all 4 games in the series follow the same format, we'll concentrate on the first one, Valkyria Chronicles, for this episode. However, the greatest selling point of the series is the unique gameplay that it features. Next up we have South Park: The Stick of Truth. One of the most popular examples of a TV to video game conversion, rather than the other way around, is South Park: The Stick of Truth. The game was published by Ubisoft and launched in 2014 as a collaboration between Obsidian, the makers of Fallout New Vegas, and South Park Digital Studios. The game is very much a parody of Lord of the Rings in the traditional South Park style, both artistically and thematically. Next up we have Fire Emblem: Three Houses. There are many different Fire Emblem titles that deserved this spot, but Three Houses is the most well-known and best-selling game in the franchise, which is why we're featuring it over lesser-known entries that you may prefer. The game revolves around the protagonist as an acting professor residing as the head of one of 3 different houses that you can choose from close to the start of the story. 4 different branching stories come from this, resulting in the game having a lot of replayability. Next up we have Dragon Quest XI-S. Whatever you think of Nintendo's rigid and uninteresting game discounts, the games they give on their portable platforms are nearly always of high quality. However, being traditional doesn't mean that the system doesn't stand the test of time or has to become a stagnant experience. Furthermore, many of the most traditional JRPGs still have huge fan bases and followings among the gaming community. When done right, turn-based JRPGs can be just as balanced and even more innovative than real-time combat systems. Next up we have Darkest Dungeon. Darkest Dungeon is a textbook example of how to create a Lovecraftian game. It has a distinct gameplay style and appearance, which capitalizes on the pseudo-horror genre in which the game is set. The game revolves around the exploration of a mansion that the player has inherited. Rather than exploring those depths themselves, the player recruits a roster of mercenaries of different classes, featuring different traits, strengths, and weaknesses. The last game of this video is Octopath Traveler. Square Enix is a major player in the RPG business, producing both turn-based games like Final Fantasy Tactics and real-time games like Kingdom Hearts. Octopath Traveler uses a HD 2D art style adding a level of aesthetic uniqueness on top of its already original turn-based gameplay systems that critics responded well to. As well as critical success, the turn-based RPG also saw commercial success, with total sales exceeding 2.5 million as of February 2021. So that's the list of 10 best turn-based RPGs of all time. If you enjoy this video, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel Games Puff and press the bell icon for more gaming videos.